Good evening. I'm Timmy Longo. I'm 10 years old. I want to invite you back to 1972 for just a couple minutes. I was 10. But before we go there, I want to give you some context as to why my brain took me back to 10 years old just a couple weeks ago. So my lovely bride turned 59 this year, and she said, I'd like to go to dinner. And so me and three of the kids, we went to this restaurant in Stonefield. It's called Matchbox. Now, I immediately went to the Matchbox that I was familiar with for you older folks in the room. Maybe you had some Matchbox. They were these great little cars. And, they came in these really cool colors. You remember them? And I would snap the tracks together, and I'd run my cars with loops and hills. And I thought to myself, one of these days, I want to have me one of these cars. I want to be something, and I want to have me one of these cars. And it reminded me how simple life was when I was 10 and how old I am now. I don't even think they sell Matchbox anymore. So we walked out of the restaurant, and my mind snapped back to 2023 and all the stuff we're dealing with today. And my phone buzzed. It buzzes a lot. And so I looked at it. It was one of those CNN alerts, and something tragic had happened, and something truly did. That afternoon, a Baltimore era had come to an end. One of the greatest third baseman in the history of baseball had lost his life. He died at 86 years old. He was number 5. He was the human vacuum cleaner. His name was Brooks Robinson. Those of you who are much younger than me may never have heard the name Brooks Robinson. Brooks Robinson was Baltimore, or as we say it back home, Balmer. He was Balmer through and through. He lived it and he breathed it. And he did it with grace and humility and kindness. He did it with love of the game, and he did it with love of people. So when I went home that night, and I laid in bed, I thought about Brooks Robinson. I thought about Balmer. And I thought about someone else. It's what brought me back to 10 years old. His name was Jim Palmer. Another name from the past you young folks may not remember, but number 22 was probably one of the greatest pitchers in Major League Baseball in the 1970s. In the 1972 Baltimore Orioles, I would venture to guess that one of the most pivotal players in the game back then, and perhaps even now, was the pitcher. Now, I don't play a lot of baseball, but I know this. Games are won and lost from the pitcher's mound. And so in the 4th grade, in the spring of my 4th grade year, I decided I was going to run for a position in student government. It was a really important position. It was called the Assembly Coordinator. And so I would be that guy that would get to call the shots for the assemblies, right? I would get to plan the assemblies. I would get to tell people what to do to set up for the assemblies. And I was going to be the assembly coordinator. And I was going to be, hands down, the best assembly coordinator that there ever was. And so when I stepped up to the podium to give my campaign speech, I made a promise. I promised that at our first assembly that fall, I would get Jim Palmer to come and speak to us. Now, let me tell you something. The crowd did not laugh. They roared. They were like, yes! And look, honestly, as I stand here today, I have no idea who was running against me, but they were crushed. They were dead in the water. Their political career was gone. Timmy Longo. Front and center. I was going to go down in history. The fame, I couldn't stand it until I walked away from that podium thinking to myself, what did you just do? And so the weeks went by, spring became summer, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know Jim Palmer. Jim Palmer does not know me. I don't know anybody that knows Jim Palmer. So if I'm nothing, I'm courageous. I picked up the phone and I called the front office of the Baltimore Orioles. And I don't know who answered the phone, but somebody did, and I told him my story. And what a story I told. And there was silence. And the guy on the other end said, well, you really got yourself in something, didn't you, boy? I said, yes, sir, I did, but you got to help. Let me see what I can do. Fast forward, it's September. It's the day of the first assembly, and the assembly coordinator is sweating bullets. I'm pacing the courtyard of St. William York Elementary School. And I had reason to believe that the guy on the phone was going to come through. But I'm just praying Jim Palmer is going to come down out of the sky in a parachute and save my rear end. But it wasn't a parachute, it was a Ford Thunderbird. When he pulled into the parking lot, 6'2" of him, I think. Handsome devil that he was, there he was, Jim Palmer, number 22. And he got out of the car with this big smile on his face. And I thought to myself, what a guy. What a guy. You know, it sounds like a criticism, and I don't mean it to be, but I look at professional athletes today, and I really search to find humility. I can't imagine somebody today answering that call, let alone showing up. But he did. And he did it with grace. And he did it with kindness. He gave of himself and he gave of his time. And he stood at the front of that auditorium. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a rock star. I did this. And I'm never going to forget it. He spent an hour with us, an hour of his time. He shook hands, he talked to kids, he signed those little, they were larger than baseball cards, but smaller than portraits. To Tim, Jim Palmer, and he drove off. I don't know that he realized what he left behind. But here's what he left behind. A really important message for a 10-year-old. That every once in a while, the 60-year-old will remember. When you make a promise, deliver. When you deliver, don't forget where you came from. Be humble. Be kind. Be thoughtful. That's what I remember. I don't know what he thought when he drove away, but I know what I thought. And I'll remember it forever. That's my story.